Okay, this is our second video in solving linear equations using the balance method, and this time looking at two-step equations. So again, let's get into an example and you can see what I mean by two-step equations. So in the previous video it took us one step in order to solve the equation. In these equations it's going to take us 2 steps to solve the equation. So let's have a look. If we were asked to solve 2x plus 1 equals 15, then this is what we need to do. So if I put this on a set of weighing scales like I showed you on the previous video, so if we just did a very basic bowl there and a very basic bowl there, put my equals in between. In this side we've got 2x plus 1, and on this side of the scales we've got 15. So we need to get x on its own. We need to get x on its own. I'm aiming for x equals something. Okay? So what do we need to get rid of? We need to get rid of the plus 1 and this multiplied by 2. The question is, which one do we get rid of first? Well, this is where looking at what the work we did with function machines and being able to put this on a function machine is going to help you decide which one to get rid of, and help remind you. When you get experience, you'll know which one to get rid of first. Okay, so if you think about it, x is the number we're trying to find. X is the number I'm thinking of. Remember we did think of a number. What's the first thing that's happening to x in the equation? It's being multiplied by 2. And then what's happening? 1 is being added. So that's our next machine. And then what do we get? 15. So there's our equation on a function machine. X times 2 is my 2x. Will come out of there. Plus 1 gives me 15. 2x plus 1 equals 15. So as you can see now, if we wanted to work out what x was, remember we go backwards through our machine, and when you go backwards through your machine you do the opposite, and this reminds us what I spoke about in the last video. If you want to get rid of plus 1, you minus 1, you subtract 1. Okay, if you want to sort out multiply by 2, you divide by 2, and then we're going to get our value of x. So we can do it, we can show it with this basic two-step one on a number machine or function machine. You could use that if you wanted to solve it, but I want to get you quite efficient at using this balance method, because when the equations become more complex, then using the balance method over here is going to be more efficient. But you could use this function machine method to solve a basic two-step equation, because we've got 15, take away 1, that'll be 14. Divide by 2 is of course 7. So x is equal to 7. So how do we show that over here? Well, the first thing we get rid of then is plus 1, because that was the last thing that was added or done to our unknown number. Okay, the first thing that was done to our unknown number was multiplied by 2. The last thing was done was plus 1. So the first thing we sort out is the plus 1. So we take away 1 from both sides. There's the balance method, and it echoes what we've got there in our function machine. Moving down the page, 2x didn't touch it, so it stays 2x. Equal sign, keep those in a line. 15 take away 1, 14. Yeah, I forgot to mention this in the last video. I always keep my equal signs in a line, so it's really easy to read and understand for myself and anybody else. So now we need to get rid of the times 2, or remember, we're not actually getting rid of it, we're transforming it. It looks like we're getting rid of it, but we're not really, because 2 divided by 2 is 1x, and we just write x, so that's fine. And 14 divided by 2 is 7. Now I normally wouldn't have a big gap there, I just did that there, didn't, because I wasn't sure how long it was going to take. Okay, so there's our first two-step equation. Let's look at another one. One more. Just going to move this up. Going to leave that one there so we can see it as well. Okay, let's look at another one. example 2. Solve 5x minus 1 equals 19. Okay, so this time we need to get rid of minus 1, and we need to get rid of multiply by 5, or we're going to transform multiply by 5. What do we get rid of first? The minus 1. If we put that on a machine, x would go in, then the first thing that happens to it is multiply by 5, and then the last thing that happens to it is subtract 1, and then we get the 19. So you can see, going backwards, we've got to sort out the minus 1 first. How do we get rid of minus 1? In other words, how do we make it 0? We add 1. Do the opposite to what it is. And we do it that side, we must do it to that side of the equation. Moving down the page, 5x minus 1 plus 1 is nothing, equal sign, keep it in a line, 19 plus 1, 20. Now we need to turn this 5 into 1x. How do we do that? Divide by 5. Do it that side, do it that side. 5 divided by 5 is x, 20 divided by 5 is 4. And here's our answer. So there's another example. But what you must notice, the number we get rid of first is usually the number that's on its own. The number in front of x, the coefficient of x, is always the last number we sort out. Okay, and that's something you notice after you've done as many as I have, thousands of them. So you realise, well, the number in front of x is the last one I get rid of. Now there's one more example I need to do where we don't have a multiply there, we have a divide, like we did in the other video. So I'm just going to move this up a second and do one more example. Okay, so bear with me. Okay, example 3. Oops, right, keep pressing that button. Solve, here we go. Let's have x over 4 plus 3 equals 7. So something divided by 4 plus 3 equals 7. So how are we going to sort that out? Well, again, if we put it on the machine, we have x. What's the first thing that's happening to x? It's being divided by 4. What's the next thing that's happening to x? 3 is being added. And what do we get? 7. So if we're going backwards through our function machine, the first thing we sort out is the plus 3. How do we sort out the plus 3? We want to turn it to 0, we want to get rid of it, so we subtract 3. Do it that side, you must do it on the other side. That's the balance method, keeping the weighing scales balanced. Going down the page, we still have x divided by 4. Plus 3 minus 3 is nothing, that's what we wanted. 7 minus 3 is 4. So now we have something divided by 4 is 4. Now I want to get rid of my divide by 4. I want to transform my divide by 4, or a quarter of x, really. That's how it looks, isn't it, as well? We could read it like that. X divided by 4 is a quarter of x. So I want to turn a quarter x into 1x. How do I do that? I times by 4. Because that's the opposite to divide by 4 as well. Do it that side, I got to do it that side. That gives me x, and that gives me 16. So there's my answer, there's my solution to that equation. Okay, so again, the first thing we got rid of was the number on its own, and the last thing we got rid of was the number attached to x. So up here it's the coefficient of x. Here the coefficient of x is a quarter. We don't write the 1 though, remember. So the number that's with x is the last thing we get rid of, the last thing we sort out. Okay, thank you very much. The next video we'll be looking at 3-step equations where we have x's on both sides of the equation. So far we've looked at equations with x's only on one side of the equation. Okay, thank you.